my dear, darling granddaughter. Pardon me, let me introduce us. This woman here with me is my adored, adoring, relentlessly teaching, border collie and pearls grandmother. My mother, this woman's daughter, was out of the picture, so Nana raised me. Being a person above a certain age with some history of respiratory problems, she's in temporary quarantine during the coronavirus pandemic.
Please hear that in all caps. Temporary quarantine. May I interrupt you? As Elaine Stritch sang so defiantly, I've lived through Herbert and J. Edgar Hoover, and I'm still here. As soon as this health scare is over, I am flying out of this overly sanitized cage. You were saying, darling.
You're not escaping anywhere, Madam Houdini, until we are certain the vaccines are working. Least you won't be doing that with me as your traveling companion.
Now, dear, you could build up your cardio wheeling me through the airports. I was in the courtyard here today and I heard an airplane fly over. I have no idea where it may have been headed, but I wanted to be on it.
Like the rest of the known world, I too am homebound due to COVID-19. The first 2 weeks, I baked sourdough bread and cookies for everyone in a 5-state area.
At least you're in lockdown at home, dear. If this plague doesn't end soon, please tell them to chisel this Dorothy Parker line on my tombstone. Wherever she went, including here, it was against her better judgment.
So now I'm 15 pounds heftier and bored out of my skull. We've all been encouraged to literally clean house and purge things to bring some order to our disordered world in this chaos. So I've started day drinking like a French preschooler and sorting through this box of letters my grandmother saved. This letter is from Nana.
My dear, darling granddaughter, this may be my last letter to you for a good while, so I want to get it right. I'm eager for a new experience. I heard an airplane fly over today and I wanted to be on it. Thanks to God in large print ebooks, I'm reading what other curious women have to say about travel. Here's a favorite from Eleanor Roosevelt, speaking to my adventurous heart and yours. The purpose of life is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and even richer experience. Soon you can imagine me on a sunny terrace at that little hotel we visited in the south of France. I plan to read, feel the warmth of the Mediterranean sun, and smell those lavandine farms. Remember how that French farm lady corrected our speech? Not lavandere, lavandine. Vive la France. You were one of my favorite hellos, baby cakes. And you are always one of my hardest goodbyes. Speaking of difficult goodbyes, a good friend of mine here at the old folks' home has kicked the bucket, possibly from the coronavirus, or maybe she was just bored to death with all of us old folks isolated here in the home. So I'm sitting here consoling myself with a cup of Earl Grey and those yummy ginger biscuits you baked from the recipe we charmed the handsome baker at Harrods to share. Thanks to you and the self-quarantine during this pandemic, I have the most enviable pastries in the sanatorium. Kicking the bucket was the inelegant phrase my sweet mate used. She turned to me in the sunroom and asked, "So how far do you think an old lady can kick the bucket?" You're welcome, I'll be here all week. Well, not if the airlines and a cruise ship crank up again. Speaking of biscuits, remember how Proust dunks his Madeleine into the cup of tea and his memory gushes forth? Madeleines are so spongy. It seems to my mind that a harder cookie, maybe biscotti, or a proper British tea biscuit, even hardtack, would have been a better choice. I mean, the whole excuse for dunking is to soften the biscuit and release the sweetness. Baby, Latin alert, biscuit, biscuitum means twice baked. I was cleaning out my flower arranging room at the farm before I came here for R&R, rest and regret, and asked your dad to set this box out for you to explore. It's not just whispering pages of wistful hokum. Our correspondence isn't likely to enter the canon of great literature, but it does collage the years into something which may remain a wee bit longer. Before you decide this ephemera is too sentimental, let me remind you of the granddaughter-grandmother story you shared that your priest told you at a college party. Two psychiatrists get together on a Monday morning, and one of them says to the other, "I had the artist Freudian slip this weekend. I was spending the weekend with my grandmother, and I meant to say, 'Grandmother, dearest, please pass me the butter.' And instead I said, 'Grandmother, you insufferable old bag, you've ruined my life.'" Some of our letters chronicle less than joyful moments, but as I was boxing things for you, I was surprised to find it was the shared laughs like that made me want to mist up. Up with which I wanted to mist. Have fun rummaging through the past, cutie pie. Please keep a better journal, dear. You know I'm perpetually curious. And I know I am still grandmothering you in my relentless teaching mode. With you, it's been my special pleasure to try to fill your heart with laughter, help you grow some wings, nurture your sense of wonder, inspire you a bit, and mostly to just love you like there's no tomorrow. Love, your Nana. P.S. Please be responsible about the day drinking.
Valentine's Day, 1st grade. Dear Nana, my teacher's making us write to say thank you. I bet I'm the only one who had a grandmother sew a heart on her camisole. Your friend, Anna.
I'm glad you like the Valentine's, sweetheart. And as I said when I hugged it onto you, I'm so sorry I couldn't be at your school party, but I had one of my encore college exams. The Valentine I sewed onto your camisole should fit right over that sweet heart of yours. And by the way, friend is spelled F-R-I-E-N-D. The rule is I before E except after C. Also, your friends are your schoolmates. I am lovingly your grandmother.
I'm writing so you will bring me another Pippi Longstocking book from Washington, D.C. My whole 3rd grade class wants to read them too. I've already read the one you mailed, Pippi Longstocking in the South Seas. I've read it 4 times. And Dad read it to me, which was even better because he does all the voices. I want to be strong like Pippi Longstocking. She's the strongest girl in the world. She says so herself. She can lift her own horse. I bet you are learning a lot at your school. Dad says he is proud of you, always curious as a cat. Me too. Also, I got the green hair bow. Dad says we don't have to go to church until you come home, so it will be fresh and new then.
Dear Anna Banana, you might consider this a "You're welcome" card for the books and hair bow. But thank you for writing me. I have 2 more Pippi Longstocking books in my suitcase. By the way, I'm sure having superhuman strength to lift a horse comes in handy when one's horse won't cooperate. To me, Pippi Longstocking seems a bit bossy. I admire her independent spirit, but she also tells her friends what to do, and she's not always well-mannered with adults. Of course, most of the know-it-all grown-ups she encounters probably deserve the disregard they get. Kids love books where the parents aren't bossing them around, but being let alone is not going to happen for you as long as I'm your grandmother, kiddo. We will talk later about your new green, what I thought was a Sunday go-to-meeting hair bow. It is green, but a fancier word for it is chartreuse. That's a sophisticated name for yellow-green, very au courant, as the French say. You look like Gigi in your chartreuse hair bow. Jesus will be smiling when you wear it to Sunday school every week. Love, Nana. P.S. Please ask your dad to help you write a proper thank you note to President and Mrs. Bush for the photograph. You'll want to send the note in a timely fashion rather than waiting on my return. Please remember, darling, good manners will take you places that money will not.
My dad said to let you know I wrote another time and stamped and mailed the thank you note to Mr. and Mrs. Bush. Dad said it's snowing in Washington, D.C. Try to bring some home. I wouldn't mind having a few snow days during the 3rd grade.
Your father said our part of the state got some snow flurries today, but not enough to close the schools. So sorry, Anna Lee. When your dad tucks you in bed tonight, I hope you will think of this from a wonderful writer, Lewis Carroll, who said, I wonder if the snow loves the trees and fields. It covers them up snug, you know, with a white quilt. And perhaps it says, go to sleep, darlings, till the summer comes again. I miss you, and I even miss your taciturn dad, which is something every mother-in-law cannot say about her son-in-law.
Dad always reads me a bedtime story, but I wish you were here to cover me up snug.
I'm writing you at dusk, winter dusk, the blue hour. The cold in Washington, D.C. has licked at my face and turned my lips blue, which is not a good lip color for your dear old near-frozen Nana. How cold was it? Her granddaughter asked. Well, young lady, as one of my professors joked, it's so cold in D.C. today the politicians have their hands in their own pockets. I'll try to sneak a snowball into my carry-on case on the airplane when I fly home. See you later, alligator.
After a while, crocodile.
Give a hug, ladybug.
Out the door, dinosaur.
See you soon, little Miss Raccoon.
Thank you, Nana. I got your care package and the book about Heidi and her grandfather. Being with Aunt Susu in this podunk Mayberry this summer would be boring. Thank you, Nana. I got your care package and the book about Heidi and her grandfather. Being with Aunt Susu in this podunk Mayberry this summer would bore the horns off Heidi's goats. I'm bored being bored because being bored is so boring.
The cure for your boredom is curiosity, and trust me on this, cutie pie, you and I will never find a cure for our perpetual curiosity. We both get curiouser and curiouser year after year. The mystery solved, Nancy Drew. Anna and Nana are the most curious explorer girls in the whole wide world.
There's nothing to do here but watch Aunt Susu fan herself while she chomps peanuts and swigs sweet tea on her fainting couch. And then I have to listen to Aunt Mary drawl on about the long, hot summer. So I spend most of the day reading up here on the sleeping porch. I want to go to the Swiss Alps and herd goats. The kids here think it's funny when I wear Aunt Susu's fur hat and the snowshoes I made out of 2 worn-out tennis rackets. Virginia, Aunt Mary's Boykin Spaniel, is the lead dog on my sled team. Your hostage granddaughter, Heidi Anna. P.S. Was Aunt Mary near that mushroom cloud at Hiroshima? Every night I get to hear a symphony of her toots that sound like a sack full of ducks. Then she blames it on Virginia Woolf.
I'm not sure I have the credentials to teach in the Swiss Alps, but I could explore a post-retirement teaching job in Alaska. I could cook you some campfire grub while you herd goats and pan for gold. Your dad could come visit us and take you fly fishing. By the way, do you know the difference between Santa Claus and a warm sled dog? Santa wears a red fur-trimmed suit, and a warm sled dog just pants.
Dear Grandmother and Dad, it's hot as the hinges of Hades here at Vacation Bible Camp, but it's not as dull as I remembered from other years. The older kids, including us 12-year-olds, get to ride motorbikes on the trails through First Philippians Forest every afternoon. Wouldn't it have been great for the Jews in the Bible if they had had motorbikes? Maybe they could have wandered in the desert for 40 days instead of 40 years. I'm trying not to ask Sister Lydia too many questions so I can close my Bible and go have some fun. Some of these freakazoids really take their Bibles seriously. Didn't Jesus ever laugh? Love to you from Sewanee Bible Camp and Racetrack, St. Anna. P.S. When you come to Parents and Grandparents' Day, don't expect any crafts from me. I didn't have time for that little girly kid stuff.
So did Sister Lydia have a pistol to your head to make you write home? Good to know you are studying your Bible and riding motorbikes. I hope not simultaneously. When you said in your letter that some people sure take their Bible seriously, I think you might mean solemnly. Serious and solemn are not the same thing. I'm one of those people who take the Bible seriously, but I'm not solemn about it. You could ask any of the other old gals in my Sunday school class. There are laughs in the Bible. It doesn't seem so solemn, at least to my thinking. Old dried up Sarah laughs when God tells her husband Abraham they're going to have a baby. They name that baby Isaac, which means laughter in the ancient Hebrew language. Jesus went places I'm certain were laugh-filled. His first miracle was turning water into wine at a party. That trick must have assured him lots of party invitations. Jesus must have been a fabulous host. He threw his Last Supper party centuries ago, and people still rave about it. Yesterday, I asked Sister Mary Julian about your questioning the woeful lack of chuckles in the Bible, and she sends you this scripture from Job 8:21. God will fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with joyful shouting. Even though my favorite son-in-law, your dad, sometimes speaks with that great flow of certitude as if he were Moses coming down the hill with the original stone tablets, we both want you to question everything you read, even the Bible. However, there are ways to hold both faith and reason in your stubborn, pigtail-adorned skull, Pippi Longstocking. There are just as many smart folks who believe the Bible as smart folks who don't. One can be curious and questioning, science-embracing, and also faithful. That reminds me, please tell the camp cooks I've got a recipe for something called Bible cake that I'm bringing them on Grandparents' Day. It has raisins and figs from 1 Samuel, almonds from Genesis, honey from Exodus, and spices from 1 Kings. I'll bake one for you to share with Sister Lydia and your camp tribe. I'll be sure to cut it in halves like Solomon so you can give part to the boys. You won't always find them smelly and yucky.
Dear Nana, here's some long underwear I bought you at the Army-Navy store so you won't freeze your buttocks off over there in jolly old England.
Thank you for the long Janes. Buttocks actually sounds rather British, doesn't it, old chapette? Wuthering buttocks. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Buttocks. Much ado about buttocks.
The wind in the buttocks.
Around the buttocks in 80 days.
To mad, mad, mad buttocks.
Buttocks on a hot tin roof.
Son of buttocks.
Okay, I'm going to let you win with son of buttocks. You must be thinking of your father. Please tell him that his genuinely loving mother-in-law said that. He'll know I'm just teasing him. Besides, I want to tell you what a wonderful time I'm having on this lifelong learning excursion to England. Jollity abounds, but 'tis totally the land of the word police and language stormtroopers. When I come home, if I should use the word whom, please remind me I sound like a butler in some backwater Oscar Wilde production. On Sunday, I was walking to my favorite bookshop at Charing Cross Road and sashayed into a little cafe for a Coca-Cola. Actually, what I'd like to have is your Aunt Susu's sweet tea with so much sugar one could stand a spoon up in it. When I asked if I might have an extra ice cube in my drink, "Please, may I have one more, sir?" You'd think I had committed some ghastly lapse of taste. The soda jerk, emphasis on jerk, who was also a language grump, informed me, "Mom, it is chilled to the correct temperature." I wanted to punch his pasty British kisser. I thrilled to Mr. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet at the Globe on Tuesday. Buckets of blood. You and your school chums would have loved it. And Juliet was played by a beautiful actress from India who wore bedazzling jewels in a flowing sari. It was on a vast stage. In the Bar's day, theatergoers really had to use their imaginations. How challenging for modern eyes lulled by Technicolor and whiz-bang. Although I'm here to work on my Chaucer article, I really wanted to be enjoying more Shakespeare. Did you know he added 1,700 new words to our language? One of my lecturers presented On Neolexia, New Words for Modern Man. Now, shouldn't that be new words for modern people? Among those 1,700 Shakespeare gave us are zany, gossip, assassination, eyeball, bedazzled, balderdash, love letter, laughable, and what I'm still calling you 400 years later, you zany scallywag. Well, I'm off to some more time with the lewd and scatological excesses of Geoffrey Chaucer. He's so dirty-minded I feel I need to bathe after every class. I sometimes wish I had not proposed studying him for my encore presentation. Surely there was another DWEMW, dead white European male writer, who wasn't so nasty. Pardon the rhyme, but I'd gladly swap all these misters for a couple of the Bronte sisters. The Canterbury Tales are brilliant, but so naughty it's like being with your dearly departed grandfather and his sailor buddies, or trying not to hear you and your friends downstairs in the wild ruckus room. When I began this study trip, I thought Chaucer was a disgusting, obscene genius. Now, after more intense study, I think he's an all caps, disgusting, obscene genius. Some scholars don't take Chaucer seriously, but if a Chaucer tale is not important, then neither is a Christopher Wren cathedral nor a Constable cow. Whom, indeed whom, needs everything to be all Elgar, pomp, and circumstance all the time?
Sorry, Grandmama, but I can't help this. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Buttocks.
Well, one of us needs to be grown up, so I'm not going to dignify your buttocks nonsense with a reply, young lady. Besides, things are more refined here across the pond in England. The accent is so plummy, if I were British, I roll or imagine I would be the one who never shuts up. I do clickety-clack like the cars on the tube, just to hear my plummy self clickety-clack. And you know, Miss Smarty Bloomers, I'm certain I am not British. Pish-posh, your queen, grandmamma. P.S. The creature from the Buttocks Lagoon.
Dad and I are glad you'll soon be returning from the mother country. We've both had a few too many weeks of his canned biscuits. We're anticipating you now speak in rhyming couplets. Hark, is that fresh biscuits, or perchance we're dreaming? Enough of the canned ones and cursing and screaming.
How I long to feel yours and your dad's warm embraces. 'Twill bake you some biscuits and kiss your sweet faces.
Dad's biscuit are rather a tasty surprise. Darned if I'm not getting good with my lies.
I promise you biscuits warm and buttery when I'm with you and your dad in our home sweet home nuttery.
If I go from this boarding school straight to hell, I'd probably have to be there a month before I could tell the difference. I'm living no one's idea of sweet 16.
Are you reading? It's been my experience that no matter how much you despise where you are, a book can transport you somewhere else. Maybe if you read about someone on a quest or a trek. Was that Star Trek television show a book first? Maybe that. Tomorrow I'm going to ship you a good reading lamp and some book to read under it. Check with the campus post office. Please write me as often as you can. I'm trying to be patient, but I would be lying to say I'm not concerned about you, granddaughter dear. I've found, even during the darkest times, joy is waiting on you. You've simply got to find the light switch and flip it on. Love always, your doting, loving grandmother.
This is a thank you note, and please note it's being sent without any prompting. I got The Lamp and The Catcher in the Rye. I'm surprised that's the book you sent. It's chock-a-block with profanity, Granny dear. I like it though, and not just because of the new swear words I've learned. I could see myself chumming around Central Park with Holden Caulfield, who would be a pretty interesting dude to buddy with. And don't get your red pen out, Nana. I'm not going to write an interesting dude with which to buddy. Thank you. Love, Anna.
I have a keen appreciation for The Catcher in the Rye. Thank you very much. I got my book club to read it a couple of years ago. Mr. Salinger has Holden Caulfield looking for acceptance from his peers, but in the next breath shoving them away. Now that sort of reminds me of you, Anna Banana. I know we're all agreeing not to talk about it now that you've gone away to boarding school, but I keep thinking of you lying on a gurney in the emergency room having your stomach pumped. To me, the thought of ending one's life is a failure of imagination. I think we found a good family therapist, and your dad and I committed to work with you and Dr. Wheeler until you're totally out of the dark on this. I am sorry that you were in such pain. But suicide would be a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Your mother's disappearance almost made my own life seem meaningless, and then I found meaning in loving you. I'm not trying to make this about me, but I am not losing a daughter and then her daughter. You are loved and you are loving.
Even when I mess up, thanks for loving me anyway. You're good at that. Mother, grandmother, Nana. I'm still disappointed even my smartest friends didn't grasp what I wrote in that silly slam book was just a dumb joke.
It's been my experience with catty remarks, and I've said my share. Once you've said something catty, it's hard to put the meow back in the kitten. Hello, Anna. I haven't heard from you in a while. I'd like to hear you're getting your energy back. I hope you're not continuing to replay the joke that got out of hand with your friends back here. In your defense, sarcasm is lost on a lot of people. However, you and I both could work on enjoying our wit minus the malevolence. In their defense, people have a right to be offended. I'm not proud of this, but you may have gotten your worldview from me. Like Emily Dickinson described it, you and I both look at the world aslant. You've just been taught a very hard lesson in not always sharing your aslant perspective.
I rode my bike down to the waterfall on campus today. Here's a watercolor painting I did of the campus lake in the moonlight.
The moon is so bright where you are. You may be able to read without the lamp I sent. Tender is the night, and happily the queen moon is on her throne. That's Keats. Mr. Fitzgerald borrowed it for the title of his exquisite Côte d'Azur novel. If you haven't read Tender is the Night, please add it to your required reading list. Since the moon is so bright, maybe you won't stump your minimus.
My anatomy teacher, who is really interesting but looks like Frankenstein the monster, didn't know that minimus could be either a little toe or little finger, either.
Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster, dear. The novel was written by a girl about your age, 18-year-old Mary Shelley. Nice points for the ladies. I'm lifting a glass of full-bodied Cabernet to Miss Shelley while I scribble you this note. Good teachers matter greatly. Someday, I hope you ask that really interesting teacher for his autograph. And then, ask your dear dad to dance. Anna Banana, you are mostly good and mostly kind. You are going to be a good and kind woman. That reminds me of a story. What doesn't, right? As I recall it, the niece of the great novelist Henry James once asked him what she should do with her life. And Mr. James replied, "There are 3 things to do in life. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind.
Chatham Hall Episcopal Institute invites you to attend Parent and Grandparent Weekend, May 6th through 7th.
Your dad is looking forward to being back in Virginia for the weekend. He wants the two of you to go on the father-daughter horseback trail adventure. While you two are doing that, I'll be tossing back juleps with the other grandparents in the competitive braggadocio event on the Chatham Hall veranda.
Whee! College is so much more fun than boarding school. When you agreed to pay for this, did you know they have boys here too? Just because I'm now all collegiate doesn't mean I'm trying to be an intellectual. I'm just trying to have some unsupervised fun and find out what I'm about, who I am.
Poor little girl doesn't even know who she is. Enjoy the navel-gazing baby cakes. You may learn more via observation than introspection. Study, get a degree, have a career, marry, maybe have a kid. Then you can pay a shrink to help you be introspective.
If it's not one thing, it's your grandmother.
I don't mean to be relentlessly nudging you like a border collie, Anna dear, but I grew up with a family of sweet-natured, la-di-da folks. They each had a whim of iron. It's probably in your DNA to want to lie on the daybed, drink juleps, and listen to jazz all day. Try to fight that. I'm not suggesting that you have the ruthless ambition of Lady Macbeth, but a little more drive might add some propulsion to your dreams. Carpe your lollygagging diem, darling.
Here's a drawing of me riding a unicorn and floating over a double rainbow and into the clouds.
I may seem like a ladies who lunch fossil to you, but I am proud to be a charter member of NOW, the National Organization of Women, granddaughter dear.
I don't want any excuses, ma'am. If you don't understand my slant wisecracking, you are not my Nana.
Oh, honey, I'm only responsible for what I say, not for what you understand. Of course, we're going to have a generation gap to bridge. At least one generation, maybe two. That's the way it works with doting grandmothers and their delightful doted-upon grands. Cain and Abel and their sisters, brats probably whined about that too. But please remember, I've been a 20-something, and you've yet to be a something, like me. I know that to be true because I was there.
If we're not on the same wavelength, that's fine. I understand me, and that's as you would say, just hunky and or Dory. Please don't cast stones.
I'm not casting stones. I'm trying to hand you bricks upon which you can build your foundation. I admire you are a strong young woman with an independent will. Your dear dad, who by the way is also a feminist, and I, your devoted feminist grandmother, are definitely trying their darndest to be understanding. We just want you to use your God-given smarts. If you are deaf to the two people who love you most in the world, try to hear Abigail Adams, a woman way ahead of her time, who is quoted on this card I ordered from the National Women's Museum gift shop. Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence. Okay, I'll ease off a bit about your hitting the books. Here's where we pretend you're really studying at college. La, 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 la. And you pretend that I don't know better, lying here where I just fell off the turnip truck.
How's this for getting a thank you note written and mailed promptly? Sorry, Pennington and I left the guest house in a bit of a mess. We got into a little dust-up, and Penn insisted we get back so he could pout in his dorm. We didn't speak on the drive back, but we've patched things up for now, at least.
Are your eyes too dilated to even read this note? I'm concerned you may have dirty dish blindness, sweetheart. You have a genetic propensity for that. Your sweet mother rejected my years of housekeeping advice, too. The next time, please clean the fondue pot in the guest house, strip the bed, and take out your Dorito bags and trash. Love, your grandmother, not your maid. P.S. Oh, I still relished your visit. Please come back soon with or without Pouty Pennington, though I do like his polysyllabic name.
I've been accepted into the Women's Studies program. I'm not just playing at college this time, Nana dear. A balanced week for me seems like 5 days of feminist theory and man-hating, and saving my weekends for man-chasing. I have an idea for a book, and since I've changed majors, I've already read Simone de Beauvoir, Flannery O'Connor, Eudora Welty, Alice Walker, Margaret Cho, Frida Kahlo, and Gloria Steinem.
Healthy choices, darling. Even the ex-Playboy bunny, now feminista, Gloria Steinem.
Oh, so your reading list includes Playboy magazine? Here's where every granddaughter puts their fingers in their ears and sings la 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 la. Really, Grandmama, la. Seriously, la.
Happy 24th birthday. 24 years of being adorable and adored. I think I'm going to love you for a long, long time.
Thanks for the birthday note and the cash. To celebrate, I went on a book flogging party for the fabulous country singer/songwriter Dolly Parton. I had a chance to chat with her at this la-di-da cocktail party an old Chatham Hall friend of mine hosted. It was a fundraiser for Dolly's literacy project, Imagination Library, which has, all caps, literally given 1 million books to places so remote they don't even have a library. Dolly's looks didn't disappoint that preppy crowd either. When I complimented her on her flashy outfit, she said, "Well, thank you, sugar britches. It takes a lot of money to look this cheap." Anyway, at some point during the evening, I told Dolly Parton that I might want to become a writer someday. She gave me my new mantra, "Honey, find out who you are and then go do it on purpose."
My sincerest, best wishes, Anna dear. You've taken on a lot of changes these last couple of years, what with graduating college, taking the job at the library, and now this. I suppose you're old enough to marry. You're slightly older than when your mother shared her news, but I'm surprised to be becoming the grandmother of the bride at my young age. Though it's not like your teens from Romeo and Juliet. At least everyone won't be strutting around in tights and brandishing swords. Maybe.
I'm utterly in love, Nana.
With total candor, I am not utterly fond of the word utterly, but I love that you are love-struck. Love makes us feel so totally alive. We bristle in a good way. Falling in love is like waltzing or cha-cha-chaing into a book you've wanted to be in.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love, Nana. Like this postcard says, love is the answer.
Sometimes I agree with Lily Tomlin. If love is the answer, could you please rephrase the question? Love is grand, darling, but you don't want to be all dopey about it.
Dopey?
Yes, dear, dopey. Dopey, sneezy, sleepy, happy.
Bashful, frumpy, and doc.
I have 2 definitions of love that have sustained me for years. One is that love is a willingness to sacrifice for the other. You know you are sacrificing and you choose to. The other sounds shallow as a pie tin, but it's also important. It's that love is just a boatload of like.
I'm good with both definitions. Thanks for the validation. I'm in love. Utterly.
I always fumble through this quote from Jonathan Safran Foer, but I like the sentiment. Love is when you notice someone's absence and you hate that absence even more than you love their presence.
Is that a life lesson from your marriage to Granddad?
It is how I remember feeling at times. I couldn't wait for your granddad to go on a hunting trip or me to go on some study trek. Then almost immediately, to my irritation, I wasn't loving him not being with me. The only real lesson I have from my over too soon marriage is that the reason some relationships last and some fail to last is that some persist and some don't. You'll likely find most couples have the same challenges. In the bird world, we think of swans as devoted mates for life. A couple of swans look so calm and poised gliding over a pond, but beneath it all, they are paddling like crazy.
Swans persist. Might be part of your wedding toast to us.
Or something like this. Here's to our happy newlyweds. Now you each have someone gloriously special to annoy the hell out of for the rest of your life together.
Love to you from there, and there's no one there. Oh, here we are in Oakland chugging vodka stingers with Gertrude and Alice. Actually, Mr. Wonderful is drinking for 2.5, and I'm hugging the commode for a trimester. Ta-da! We're having your legacy.
Can you complete this? I'll love you forever. I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby. Okay, I'm going to do this again. I'll love you forever. I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby, you'll be.
Do you still have my Pippi Longstocking books? We saw the sonogram today. This pregnancy thing, I have never tried that before, so I think I should definitely be able to do that. Want to know your great-grandchild's gender?
When I was pregnant carrying your mom in my tummy, this was before gender reveal parties, your grandfather and I always said, we don't care if it's a boy or a girl as long as it's wealthy. Still waiting for them. Yes, you're worse than an Agatha Christie mystery. The suspense is killing me. Is it a great-grandson or an equally great-granddaughter?
She's gonna love you and Pippi Longstocking.
Oh, I hope she's just like you, Anna Banana. You were truly a bundle of joy. I'm surprised to be this giddy about great-grandmothering. I've never tried that before, so I think I should definitely be able to do that. Your grandfather always said that 3-year-olds were his favorite age. You know how at 3 years your little Pippi will be talking and bumbling around like a lovable drunk? But tiny little new babies are so full of wonder and seem to be like opening a new book. Anything can happen.
Oh, she's going to be a new book, and she's also going to be a reader. She's a legacy, right? I'm going to love when she's old enough to sit still so I can read to her. And so you can read to her.
I can honestly say my favorite age is whatever age you are, including this one. Oh my goodness, that just made my tear ducts want to activate. I'm going to be a mushy great-grandmother puddle.
On one of my granddad's old vinyl records, Tennessee Ernie Ford sang, I sold my soul to the company store. On New Year's Day, I'm leaving bleeding heart social work for the brazen vulgarity of American consumerism. I've signed on as a corporate speechwriter. So now I'll be writing excuses for environmental pillaging and boardroom jokes for stiff executives with lousy comic timing. You can find me at the intersection of Wall Street and Compromised Avenue next to Sellouts Are Us.
Methinks thou dost protest too much, darling girl. It's not like you signing on with brand Satan. I'm enclosing a copy of Ogilvy on Advertising. It's supposed to be the Bible for you modern-day snake oil sales types. Try not to dismiss it as much as you do that other Bible.
I'll get twice my social worker salary for a few ghost-written jokes and an additional 50 cents for my soul.
You're right, dear. We are not put on earth just to make a living. We're here to make a difference. And you can support yourself and your family and still be a heroine to someone. How about teaching literacy during your lunch hour or working at the Friends of the Library bookstore instead of Pilates one Saturday each month? Most of us are not doing great things 24/7, but each of us can do some small things with great passion and make a difference. Now, I think I'll climb off this soapbox and fix myself a pimento cheese BLT. My tomatoes are the most luscious ever. Why am I wasting time writing when I could be eating? It is a psychological truism. One can only think sunny thoughts while eating a homegrown tomato. TTFN. Ta-ta for now. Nana.
I bet half the wonks writing annual reports and advertising for corporate America have a sheaf of poetry or half a novel they've written that's squirreled away in their desk drawer. I guess I'll be that wonk. The saddest part is how cheap we sell ourselves for. How cheaply for which we sell ourselves.
Here's the perfect book for you. It's letters between Pulitzer-winning poet Marianne Moore and the head of Ford Motor Company. Miss Moore, she never married, is suggesting names for Ford's new car. They called it an Edsel, but I would actually have bought one if they'd used her name in suggestions. One was the Ford Mongoose, and another was the Ford Utopian Turtle Top.
If this advertising hack writer gig doesn't pan out, maybe they'll hire me to sort letters for the post office. Faulkner was a not great postal worker in Oxford, Mississippi before he won his Nobel.
I want you to own your career goals. You're an admirable, ambitious woman. And I also want you to own this early 1800s map of the southeastern United States for the walls of your corporate office. Your goals are maps to guide your journey. A gifted writer can be plunked down smack dab in the middle of the Delta or a desert and imagine a novel as captivating as Virginia Woolf's One Day in London with Mrs. Dalloway. You can baffle them with some highfalutin Wall Street Journal gobbledygook and then write something pure and lyrical on the weekends. If you decide to try again, your baby could be sleeping in a pricier crib.
I just read this idea in a glossy travel magazine. When you're on your Italian sojourn, I want you to remember your best or most memorable taste, touch, sight, sound, smell. I'm going to quiz you when I collect you at the airport.
Ciao, Bella Italia! This is what God would have created if she'd had the imagination. Italy is a vast conspiracy to make one covet. I just thought of this bromide when I saw the Colosseum. I hope to learn something today, not just decay. Pretty good, right, Miss Advertising Copywriter of the Year? I'm bringing you a Prezi from a shop next to the Uffizi to celebrate.
Is that Italian church art as garish and gilded as I might have thought? I hope to hell it is, that and more. So extremely vulgar, so perfecto.
Here's some Latin I learned while in Rome. Deformibus vita, which telegraphs with a wink, life's too short to dance with ugly men. I'm sending you and yours many baci, blowing double kisses from Firenze. Mwah, mwah. By the way, you know how the Italians love the sleekest, newest eye candy? The front desk clerk at my hotel has an electronic book. It's chic looking, but I could never imagine myself forgoing the tactile thrill of sinking into a novel and caressing each page. That said, I imagine when Gutenberg unveiled his newfangled printing press, my fellow traditionalists said parchment scrolls would never die.
When I was checking on my dad this weekend, I ran into one of the ladies from your Baptist prayer circle. I told her you had asked about them, but didn't mention you're studying Dante's Circles in Hell.
The Sistine Chapel is very maximalist Margaret Mitchell with a paintbrush. Too much is not enough. It's divine. It has a funhouse feel as though gifted giant children painted it while their nanny slept. I became so mesmerized, I wandered into the priest's private quarters. I now have an international reliance on the kindness of strange men. I'm keeping notes for my sensory exam, but I can already tell you that the best or most memorable sound in Italy is the bird song. I love the sounds of the crunch of the pea gravel paths in the garden, the splash of the fountains, and the tintinnabulation of all the neighborhood chapel bells. But Italia has many of the same birds we enjoy at home. My fine feathered friends followed me here. The sparrows, goldfinches, and nightingales, they are all a-twitter. Rome has more pigeons than Protestants. As for those flying rodents, the Romans say pigeons poop white on their black Fiats and poop black on their white Fiats. Oh, arrivederci, my little chickadee. Yours eternally from the eternal city, Grand Mamma Mia.
Drum roll, please. I have an announcement. After dilly-dallying with corporate life, this wounded innocent is putting her money where her hack mouth is and becoming, get this, a real writer. I may have to forego a few luxuries. Before he sold his first horror story, Stephen King worked in a laundromat. Scary, right? Most aspiring writers aren't Edith Wharton, rich bitches.
Indeed, Edith Wharton was born with a silver asparagus fork on her tongue. But the divine Maya Angelou was a streetcar conductor, a shake dancer, a paint stripper in a mechanic shop, and a hamburger flipper before winning her Pulitzer.
Maya Angelou was also a madam for lesbian hookers, a magazine editor, and a teacher at Wake Forest.
Well, please don't do one of those things Maya Angelou did.
Teach at Wake Forest?
Yes, dear. Whatever, dear.
Wish me well on scrimping, but I'm thinking maybe the greatest luxury in life is doing something you'd do even if you weren't being paid to do it.
Oh, my sweet Jesus in heaven, as Aunt Susie would say. Since you were a little girl, you've always been able to make words skip like a stone across our pond. Those who don't write think it should be so easy. Just cross out the wrong words, right? You had to get out of your own way. Wordsmithing is a perfect calling for you. You'd make a lousy mime, Anna Banana Nana. We both would. I can't remember who said this, though I'm certain, absolutely certain, it was a woman. Be silly, be fun, be different, be crazy, be you. Because life is too short to be anything but happy.
Don't laugh. No, seriously, maybe laugh. I'm going to focus my writing mainly on comedy. Maybe you and my dad were too encouraging about my Carol Burnett clowning and parlor shtick. When I write something witty and it gets a laugh, that sounds like somebody gets me. Comprende, senora?
Maybe you could do a tour stand-up act like Mark Twain or Joan Rivers. I'll pray for you to be as funny as him and not as coarse as her. Can we talk? Like Mr. Twain, you could trade your dark, solemn corporate suits for writerly white.
Did you know on the first date Mark Twain had with his wife, he took her to a reading by Charles Dickens in New York City? According to Twain's memoir, after the show, they went to Delmonico's and Charles Dickens walked in and asked the bartender for a martini. And the bartender said, "A martini, Mr. Dickens? Olive or twist?" I'm here all week, folks. Okay, maybe I made up the last bit, but the part about the first date is recorded. Please feel free to fact check me.
Are you certain you have the gift for comedy, dear? Few things are as tedious as someone who labors to be witty all day long. Please don't get me started on why I never liked I Love Lucy and all that slapstick mugging. Besides, you could surprise folks and occasionally flash some intellection and a bit of gravitas.
Gravitas schmavitas.
You misheard me, sweetie pie. I didn't say you were a smartass. I said you are a smartass, not past tense, darling. At least you've evolved beyond that mopey teen angst, maudlin Mary phase. Sorry.
The past, the present, and the future walk into a bar. It was tense.
Oh, here's a copy of Mr. Strunk and Mr. White's book. I just want to encourage your writing. I liked the Sylvia Plath quote on the bookmark, too. It's a hell of a responsibility to be yourself. It's much easier to be somebody else or nobody at all.
Thank you for the pristine copy of Elements of Style. I have it with me in my mouse gray writer's shed where I'm nesting quietly. Writing is such a quiet pursuit, something like golf, and for some it requires about as much grass. I'm joking, I'm not doing much grass, mostly just sipping port and sharpening my pencils and tongue.
From the Latin, acre lingua, meaning sharp tongue.
Latin is dead as it can be. It killed the Romans and now it's killing me.
Boy, children, they grow up so slowly. I'm hoping you're striving to be an arresting writer, not an arrested one. Oh, dear me, granddaughter dear, it's too late to do anything but accept you and love you. But when you were quite a little muffet on a tuffet, somebody ought to have said, hush, just once. Write soon. Love, Nana.
While I thrash out the plot for my novel, I'm noodling a collection of food quotes and recipes by well-known women writers. One cannot think well, love well, sleep well if one has not dined well. Virginia Woolf. The only time to eat diet food is while you're waiting for the steak to cook. Julia Child. Or this from Sophia Loren, I'm sure she wrote something. Everything you see, I owe to spaghetti. Then there's this surprisingly upbeat Sylvia Plath journaling. How I love to cook. Maybe it was her failed tomato soup cake recipe that caused her to stick her head in the oven and turn on the gas.
What are you putting in your coffee, dear girl? Do you even brew your own coffee, or is it instant? You're much more believable as a novelist than a cookbook author. Just calm your hiney down. Gawk at some really good scribbler like Lillian Hellman before Hollywood ruined her, and persist on your novel. Writing feels like work because it is work. Read the best writers, then write something, then read some more. The best wine starts in the vineyard. And persist. Persistence pays, as does a grandmother's pickiness. Pick, 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 pick.
Thanks for reining me in about the questionable credulity I'd have as a cookbook author. I must have gotten a sugar high from all the Dr. Pepper and Krispy Kremes. And yes, my coffee is brewed. And later, maybe, zapped.
You are the legacy of great storytellers, and you have a lifelong passion for books, Pippi Longstocking. You can be the real deal, and we need more real deals. When you were not even toddling, I could plop you down with some touchy-feely, fluffy bunny book, go smoke a cigarette, and read my own book like an adult. Remind me to give you that framed poem you had published in Highlights magazine in the 4th grade. Fudgy Wudgy, the Chocolate Caterpillar. Should have gotten the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry that year, I tell you. Darn you, Marianne Moore.
Later, those heartless bastards at Highlights magazine sent me my first rejection letter, too.
Well, don't ask an adoring grandmother to be objective. Even when their own grandchild is the most disgusting little blister you could ever imagine, their Grammy still thinks she's splendid. Maybe your dad was right in saying I doted on you a tad much.
Oh, dote away, Nana dear. I'm almost always up for your dotathons. Thanks to your encouragement or relentless pickiness, I'm back on track with my novel. I'm trying to let the story tell me what it wants to be.
Here's a blurb for your book jacket. From the moment I picked this book up until I laid it down, I was convulsed with laughter. Someday, I intend reading it. That was from one of the Marx brothers. But while you're putting the final touches on your novel, the Marx sisters and I will be writing a rave review.
I've written my own blurb. It took me 30 years to write this story. Please give me 30 minutes to captivate you. Or give my editor 30 lashes.
How about this? If you read only one book this decade, let it be this one. I would say that even if I weren't the author's doting grandmama.
This week, a reviewer would say, what a steaming, festering pile of dreck.
Now, you're just being a glooming Gertrude. Now, how about this review? A masterful tale from the tail end of a horse.
Even better than her cookbook, which was gut-bustingly hilarious.
If you want the rainbow, you got to put up with some rain.
Was that rainbow quote from the Dalai Lama?
Nope, your gal pal Dolly Parton.
It's hard to be a diamond in a rhinestone world.
You darling, darling girl, thank you for reserving me the first copy of your final draft. I am honored, proud as punch, and wowed by the writing and the writer. I'm not just cheering for you in your novel, I'm standing on a chair and doing the chicken dance. I'm baking your favorite blueberry galettes. The blueberry bushes at your dad's house are pendulously drooping with deliciousness. Look for your UPS driver on Friday. Some publishing house is going to love your novelization of Abigail Adams. She'd be proud of you too. You've arrived. Yay, you! You've become a real writer. Love always. Grandmother of a grand writer.
Am I a real writer? Well, maybe. Remember our being on the daybed in the garden room and you reading the Velveteen Rabbit? It doesn't happen all at once. You become. It takes a long time. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off and your eyes drop out and you get loose in your joints and very shabby. But those things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand.
I have had some perfectly wonderful Decembers, but this hasn't been one. Thanks to your dad and the woman he's been spending some time with, and 2 of my yard workers from the prison camp, I've got so many Christmas lights up, we're probably being watched by the Hubble telescope. I am determined to have some Yuletide spirit. More nog and the eggnog, Ricardo! Feliz Navidad, mi amigo! Yet, all is not great here in holiday Whoville. Now, don't overreact to this. In fact, there's really no reason to talk about it at all. My oncologist, she graduated from Harvard Med, top of her class, go Crimson, has found a few very treatable cancer cells on the cardiac notch of my left lung, and she scheduled my surgery for the 21st, and then a week of recuperation, which means I'll spend Christmas Day in the hospital. Now, I've been reassured it's not a big deal. I haven't stopped to ask, why me? Really, why not me? Even though it's fruitcake weather, I wasn't sure I was going to bother with baking this year anyway. Enjoy your holiday parties and come see your dad and me after I'm home doing cartwheels, and we'll make angels in the snow. Love, Nana. P.S. I can't spell worth a darn anymore. I'm blaming it on what they call chemo brain fog, but it's probably just old age. If I misspelled anything in this missive, please savor your intellectual superiority and let it remain your smug secret. In the words of that superb speller, Miss Aretha Franklin, please show your old grandmother some respect.
I enjoyed being with you and my dad and his new girlfriend for our family Christmas. The quiet time at the hospital was a good break from all the holiday horse reindeer hockey. And reading Little Women to you took it off my 100 novels one must slog through again as an adult. I'm sure the sweetness sent my blood sugar out the wazoo. I'll need a month of insulin and a couple of sourball Dorothy Parker novels to level it out. I'm sorry about choking up during the Amy death scene. Louisa May Alcott jerks my tears every time, that bully in a velvet snood. That was just me being a wussling about anything that's not light and funny. You're going to be fine, Grandmarmy.
Your grandfather and his lady friend and I enjoyed your Christmas Day visit. I like that woman. She can hold her own with us, and that's saying something, kiddo. But honestly, I wouldn't care if she was Lucretia Borgia. I just like seeing your dad try again. Thank you for insisting on coming, for caring, and for the haversack full of goodies. Also, thank you again for the big box of audiobooks your librarian friend chose for me. Even though I missed the last meeting, I was proud to report to my book club that I've read 200 books this past year. I didn't feel I needed to confess I read about half of those books on tape. As soon as I can stop the chemotherapy, my eyes won't be dry, and I can return to real books like God and Herr Gutenberg intended. Have you mailed your holiday thank you notes? You do get those mailed before each New Year, right? Any resolutions? Something else published this year? Have you considered a book of your poetry? Does anyone these days other than batty old ladies and batty young lovers even read poetry?
Yes, grandmother. Yes, no, maybe, no, whatever.
I know I'm repeating myself from my phone call last night, but I just wanted to say again, I am sorry you are divorcing. I'm not totally surprised, but I know you're disappointed. Even though people don't always marry the person they love most, few couples get married hoping it will end. I love you both. I had a little worry when you lost the baby, and also after you decided to leave your high-paying corporate job. Then my grandmaternal antenna went up when you mentioned moving your books to your writing shed. Solitude isn't lonely for most creative people, but it can leave the other person in a relationship feeling more alone than they may wish. Do I repeat myself? Yes, I repeat myself. I am sorry you are hurting. I love you. Nana.
I got the new camisole with the Valentine you stitched on the chest. It was even more touching because you didn't include a note. You didn't have to. No words needed. Seriously and somewhat solemnly, words could never speak so eloquently. Thank you for being my Valentine, always.
You are my heart. Life will be different for you now, but you will be fine. Not to spoil the ending of the story, dear, but everything is going to be okay. New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. When I was growing up, we had pecan trees on our farm, and one thing I learned from them is being buffeted by storms make them grow deeper roots. Hold your head up, straighten your hair bow, and move forward. Your dad advised me to gently suggest if you have an axe to grind, there's no need to grind it on the courthouse lawn. He loves his writer-daughter. Your dad also said to tell you that you may find it harder to write without a mate, since you'll now have to finish your own sentences.
Living in a house alone allows for a lot of solitude and reflection. As they teach at every writer's retreat, isolation fosters creation. The ex and I had bought a relationship counselor, a Lacombe, over the years, but I really had not given up hope until a session just a few weeks ago. As we were readying to leave his office, I asked the counselor if there were any homework or some exercise he found truly useful for couples navigating troubled seas. He said there was one exercise. I'm thinking, really, one? Why had he not told us this many years and many counseling fees ago? We were paying $90 an hour. And there's this one thing that actually works? The exercise is for each of the couple to say what their favorite children's book was and why. It's that book you read over and over once you could read, or the one you pestered your grandmother or your dad to read to you over and over. The idea is your core personality is related to the character you connected with so deeply. Mine, of course, was our old friend Pippi, out to explore and use her superpowers to save the world. It would be disloyal to say what the ex said his favorite children's book was. But I can tell you, and I own my 50% of the problems in that marriage. I loved him for years and wanted to try to keep things together. So after the session, without telling anyone, and I still haven't told him, I drove to Bookland, and while I was standing there, I read his favorite children's book. I wanted to rip the thing apart. I truly loathed the main character. You know, I'm not a crier, but I wept in the middle of the children's book, sitting on a little tuffet next to a big green stuffed muffet, Kermit the Comforter. After the rage and the tears and the soggy Kermit, that's when I knew my beloved might be right proposing we hug and go our separate ways.
I wish you had gotten to know your colorful grandfather. I wish for many reasons that he had not died before you were born. He would have adored you, and you him. His favorite children's book was The Call of the Wild. That delightful wild man was always up for an adventure. My favorite children's book was The Little Red Hen. You know, Miss Work, 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 beak to the grindstone. Oh, great, now I need to get back into therapy.
I'm shipping you a set of black ink silkscreen prints from the journal drawings I did during your lung rehab. I know contemporary art is not usually your thing, but you might like my thinking behind these. They are nibble rings the fish made on the pollen-dusted surface of the pond as they popped up to snag a bug. They're like a time study I drew over those days while you were R&Ring. Think of Monet's impressions of the Rouen Cathedral painted in various light on various visits. It's an easy train ride from the little hotel in the south of France where someday you will be reading on the sunny terrace. You know, Monet, but better. Yeah, right, I know what you're thinking, Nana. Maybe Monet's pet monkey with an Etch-a-Sketch. My grandmother knew how uncomfortable I'd be with this public mourning. I was sort of relieved when she died during the coronavirus pandemic and formal funeral gatherings are put on hold and we Zoom our memorials like this one. She was so much more than a number, but according to the CDC, she was the 543rd, 975th American to die with COVID-19 since accounts began earlier last year. To the very last chapter, she was the same delightful, witty woman I had loved and laughed with from page 1. She would say, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened." To much of the world, she seemed very proper, even starchy, but we got each other from the get-go. I was the cherished only child of her only child. And for us, life often actually was a joking matter. Together we saw the world aslant. Serious was rarely solemn. Even the valentine she hand-stitched on the camisole I'm wearing under this starchy suit is slightly aslant. Many people are not getting the desired ending to their story as they might have wished during this challenging time. A great book, you want to go on longer. That is also true of a grand adventure and a grand love. Is it goodbye already? Thanks to Nana, I became a writer. She and I enjoyed long video chats in her final weeks, which is how many of you are finding connection with those dear to you during these socially distanced days. Nana loved that my new normal had evolved from baking bread 24/7 to compiling a global pantheon of women writers, maybe 24/3. I thought to end these remarks with a poem by Christina Rossetti. Nana was born on a wintry day in early March, and the Rossetti poem has the lines, "Why were you born when the snow was falling? You should have come to the cuckoo's calling." Those words from a great woman writer inspired the title of one of J.K. Rowling's, another great woman writer's, 2013 novel after she ended the Harry Potter series. But Christy, Tina Rossetti titled her poem The Dirge, and Nana would not want a dirge. Please, after you get home, Google Rossetti's The Dirge. See, she's still teaching. I wanted to give our story a perfect beginning, middle, and perfect end, but there is not an end for us. My grandmother, my Nana, held my hand for a long time, but she holds my heart forever. I would like to close this celebration of her grand life with this poetic gorgeousness from Tennessee Williams, a male writer who wrote wonderful lines for female characters to share. It seems so right for this time we are all living and feeling lost in. Sorry, Nana. This time in which we are living and feeling lost. Suppose that everything that greens and grows should blacken in one moment, flower and branch. I think that I'd find your blinded hand. Suppose that your cry and mine were lost among numberless cries. In a city of fire when the earth is afire, I must still believe that somehow I'd find your blinded hand. And against all reason, let us believe and believe in our hearts that somehow it would be so. I'd hear your cry, you mine, and each of us would find a blinded hand.